That in this season, there has never been such a paucity of relationship in the history of humans. And we've never had this much access to resources and research, but we're dying faster. We're killing ourselves faster from emotional illness than from physical illness for the first time in history. And so the question then becomes, what is it about this human experience that is becoming more and more difficult? And I think it really comes back to this idea of loneliness of people ask us often as therapists, like, what is going on with this mental health crisis? Why does everybody have the ADHD and the autism, and how come depression and anxiety is so massive? What about this mental health crisis? And I actually don't think we're in a mental health crisis. I think we're in an understandable human response to a loneliness epidemic, because we're neurobiologically wired for connection. You disconnect from an infant, they die. That is not going to change. But what has changed is how much we share proximity or direct connection to each other. It's estimated that our great-grandparents looked at their children 72% more of the time than we look at our babies today. And the only way you learn that you matter, right? The only way you learn how to regulate emotion is somebody has to show you. They can't tell you. So this loneliness, I think, is the focus of what really is happening in this sense of disconnection and mental health crisisery.
That's the disconnect, the loneliness. I think for all parents listening in, what they want deeply for their children is to feel connected, to feel loved, to feel seen. What's happening? Like, where is this coming from?
I think it's really easily measurable, in so many ways, and we can blame all kinds of things. But I think since the introduction of the smartphone in 2006, we've seen a massive decline in the mental wellness of our children. The introduction of the forward-facing camera happened in 2009. So the absorption of what's happening here within our own self versus how we stay connected to other people has become significantly distorted. And I think that, that's one situation. I think that also, kids have less access to friendships. Kids have less access to parents, grandparent figures. There's much more single parent households than ever before in history than there are in this moment. Kids experience less sibling relationships. All of those opportunities to develop the social skills necessary to do well in this world have become significantly compromised, not just in, over the course of multiple generations, but more so significantly in the last decade. And equally as so, I think that I don't think we ask the right question. I think we ask all the time, what is wrong with kids these days? And so John, Haidt work, I'm sure you're familiar with the anxious generation, speaking a lot about holy moly, what's going on with kids these days. And I often ask this, when I get to speak, I spoke with educators globally, and I keep saying to them, what have you noticed about kids these days? If you've been doing this work as a therapist or a mental health provider or a child care provider, a parent, like whatever, tell me, what have you been noticing about kids in the last 10 years? Are kids different? So there's often a resounding, yep, they are. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of response about, they're entitled, they're overscheduled, they have little ability to sort of make decisions on their own. There seems to be a lack of motivation, an addiction to devices. They don't seem very compliant, all of these things, right? And so like often this is shared and, arms are crossed and like they're, life sunken cayuse kind of thing. And so then the next question is, what have you noticed in parents these days? Has there been a shift in those of us doing, interacting with parents? If you're a teacher, if you're best friends, you look at your children's friends' parents and people are like, well, they too, all of those things, right? Overscheduled, anxious, depressed, disconnected, all of those things. Shocking. Apple and tree. The kids are not the problem. Never in the history of the world have the kids been the problem. Right? Because you can't give away something you've never received. So now if we are overscheduled, overwhelmed, so much access to technology, we never, ever, ever get a break from people. We're not designed. We're developing beyond human capacity, right? So we wake up in the morning, generally all of us, connected to our devices.
Yep, check your email.
Charge our devices by our beds. We can't even pee without sort of checking on the status of other people, or maybe somebody texted us overnight. Is our parents okay? Are our partners okay? What's going on with our employees, our businesses, our companies? And that data is inundated and put into like before we even pee.
Yep.
So shoulders are up, right? And then we're like, I'm just going to check on the social. So I have access now to everybody else's life. So I'm like, and nothing in there lowers your cortisol, right? Nothing in there is like, oh my God, look at her. She's so amazing. We're like, fuck you. Oh my God, that bitch is already working out. And then, you're like, oh, how did she? oh my God, why did Mel's book do so? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta drink collagen. I mean, I woke my husband up in December like 3 times like this. I was like, we need family pictures, and he's like,
I hear you. Yep.
so before that even like, so this is the big people of the world are like this, right? Including educators and police officers and childcare professionals and like parents. Huh?
Mhm.
So then we come out and just sort of try to start the day with our children. And this has happened to me countless times. The kids are then asking asinine questions like, what's for breakfast? And like, where's my agenda? And I'm like, I don't know. And then we strap on an Apple Watch, sit in front of a computer where there's shots of cortisol that are happening every second, right? We get notifications, on here. It's like, okay, so my husband didn't make it to the airport. He missed his flight. My dad is not doing well. My kids, I was in session today and I rarely take my phone in anymore. But because we had a sleepover, I just said to my patient, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep this right here because there's lots of things going on and by no means, disrespect, whatever. Phone rings. So I have to excuse myself in a moment because it is my 14-year-old son's best friend's phone calling me. So panic, right? Now, if we think about one generation ago of people who do our work, nobody had access to you.
No, never.
Like, if something was drastically wrong, we would figure that out when we were done the session.
Absolutely.
But now I am there in front of this human that I've agreed to serve, and I am not good enough to be able to disregard what's happening in the people I love to stay connected to them, right? Which is why, the conversation about phones in schools, technological, options for childcare workers. Why do you have access to your phone? When you're serving other people's children? Because you're not good enough to defy what is in here, what is capable, because everything I love and I know to be true is here. Right?
Yes.
So it is so difficult to disconnect from that place and stay present with other human beings that I think we're stepping into this place of, a radical response is going to be necessary. We thought that smoking was good once too, until we garnered more data. And now that we're garnering more data and watching the mental health of our babies drop significantly, we're watching burnout rates fly through the roof, the lack of capacity to serve other humans. And here's the thing that won't change, right? We're just walking each other home. Ram Dass said that we are all just here walking each other home. Nobody gets out of here alive. We cannot do any of this alone. And it's so hard, I think, as we watch the next generations unfold, or even for the rest of my career, it will be the constant reminder that all we need is each other. And in order to get back to that, we need to rest. Not work harder, not hustle harder, not, we've all been, this is where we come from, this place of like, you nap, you're lazy. But society had built in infrastructures even earlier in my life. Like I say to our kids all the time, your dad and I are older than Google.
Yeah.
Right? So like I didn't grow up with that experience. I also grew up in a place where Sundays were sacred. And Sundays now, like this Sunday, my kids have 3 hockey games. So not only do we like go all week and serve other people and write books and, hang on to other people's big emotion while we manage our own children and our own aging parents who can like access us at any second of any moment, including the teams we're running and all the things. When we come home, we don't stop. The 40-hour work week's asinine. Because my patients still, some of them still have access to me. My parents, obviously, our children, anybody who's on my team. And so there's no capacity to put it down. My favorite place, which I think is funny, is on a plane because nobody can get me. I'm on a flight 200 times a year, probably. And I love it. People are like, is it hard to travel? I'm like, no. Thank you. Because, you can now sign up for the Wi-Fi, but if at all humanly possible, I don't. Because that's just my permission to like, well, if something happens to my kids or my parents or, whatever, there's nothing I can do until I get back. And so the body keeps the score. So if you think about your dad would have walked through the door at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, at the end of their day, their shift, one generation ago, there was a visceral sense of safety if their home felt that way because nobody could get them. And maybe people would call them the home phone, but I remember we had the rule even on our house, in Viking, Alberta, Canada, that you didn't answer the phone during dinner. So your body knew that there was a sense of safety in that place. There's no place we can go now that tells our body that we're inaccessible. So you can rest.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, it's funny. Johannesburg, South Africa is where I grew up. And same
Mhm.
thing. Like Sundays, no one did anything. I remember these long, it was hot in South Africa often. These
Yeah.
long, hot Sundays where like the afternoon would just almost like feel like it was lasting forever.
Yeah.
I have this like memory sometimes that Star Trek of all things would be like on in the background, or the rugby would be playing, but it was just hot and long and hazy. And you just like, you had to entertain yourselves too. My mom was not down on the floor playing with us. Like I might now be in my 1 hour free on the Sunday between all of the soccer matches or whatever we're involved in, where now
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now I have to play with the girls. Like the
Yeah.
pressure never stops. So even connecting becomes a little bit of a job sometimes. So I was like, okay, we've got 20 minutes and you know, you've really been asking me to play with your Barbies all week. So let's get down and play with those Barbies.
Yeah. And you're like, okay. And she does this and then they're dead. Okay. Everybody up.
Damn, time for coffee. But it's so true. Everything is so hyper scheduled, you know, and in your book, you talk so beautifully about emotion regulation and how that's at the core of wellness. And I know, like, even in our house this morning, 20 minutes before we want to go to school, like I've scheduled everything. You know, now it's time for breakfast and we brush our teeth. Suddenly one of the little ones was like, oh, I have to practice my times tables for school. And she like pulled out her multiplication table. And I was like, no, not now. But there's no space for anything that's off course of what's actually plotted out. And so what's happening in terms of emotion regulation for everyone there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, and you know, just I mean, I know your community knows this, but like, you know, the definition of emotional regulation is how to stay calm, how not to lose your friggin' mind, how to stay calm in times of distress or big emotion. Okay, and it is the greatest predictor of wellness in our children. So oftentimes when I ask people, you know, what is your hope for your child, they're always like, I just want them to be happy. And that's so dumb, right? Because nobody's happy all the time. None of us wake up in the morning and are like, oh, I'm just so happy. You know, I'm so happy with the one I married. I'm so happy with my body. I'm so happy that I drank a bottle of wine last night. Like, none of us are happy. And so the greatest wish I ever have for your children and mine are the capacity to feel all the emotions. And that requires some exposure to all of the emotions. It requires a comfortableness for us big people, for them to be sad, to be unhappy, to be rejected, to be bullied, to be not chosen, to be anxious, to be depressed, to be sad, whatever those things are. Huh? And oftentimes we have such a desire to fix and to get back that we do not do a very good job of just walking them back home. Of holding space for that emotion. And that's where the greatest lessons come, because it's not about avoiding all of the bad stuff. You can't, you're not that good. Like you cannot protect your child from loss. You cannot protect your child inevitably from, you know, getting rejected or bullied. It's like, how do you walk them through that when, not if it happens?